In this video, I'm going to share some writing advice from some of the world's most famous authors, from those who have actually been there and done it. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hopefully, if I've ever had a theme in mind, I mean, usually that's just like the worst. You're kind of, then you're, then you feel yourself writing. And there's nothing worse than that feeling of kind of chasing after a theme. I mean, that's always like writing at its worst for me, The best things kind of become something and you're just happy it's there. It's just the better way to go in terms of getting better writing is having two characters that are more opposite. That way you get more traction and stuff. But ultimately, if things are going well and the characters are coming out of you, or they're going to guide you how they're going to go. And I remember at a certain point reading a great short story called, I believe it's called Bucket of Blood. John O'Hara wrote a great story about a fella that starts out, he wakes up in a hospital, and he comes to, and he's having this great conversation with a doctor. He's just had his appendix removed because his appendix is burst on this train, and he wakes up, he doesn't know where he was. And there's just this great conversation at the beginning of it between a doctor and this patient, this guy. And I started to transcribe. I just wrote it down in script form, thinking, maybe this would be an adaptation or something. Or, as I've done before too, you sort of steal something if you're bored and you got nothing to do. There's no better exercise than just write somebody else's words down to see how they look typed out, just to get you inspired again or to get it moving. And that's what I was doing with this John O'Hara thing. And by the look of it and the sound of it, it seemed to fit with some of these other things that I had lying around. So that character started to come more and more, and you just start finding pieces of them, and you hope that they start to talk to you, talk back at you in a weird kind of, it sounds hocus pocus, but it's like a weird kind of seance. You hope that you are not there at a certain point, that they're just doing the work for you. That's when it's at its best.
I think it happened very naturally and kind of perfectly that I had written things before Fight Club that will always be grateful were not my breakout thing. And so I think it was completely appropriate that Fight Club was my breakout thing. It wasn't intended as that. But I'm glad it was that. And that's something I tell beginning authors or authors who have one or two manuscripts under their belt, is that they get one first book and they really want that book to be something that generates a lot of energy. That's why directors, I think, young directors are attracted to my work, because they know that they want their first horse out of the gate to be something that really develops a buzz and a reputation that lingers for long enough that they can get another project put together. And so you want the thing to stay in the popular imagination long enough for you to launch another thing. And so I really try to dissuade writers from coming to market with something that's not that breakout fantastic thing.
And at some point along the way, I decided that I wanted to be a writer. So I started to type up stories on an old typewriter that I had, and I started to send them to magazines, and I pounded a nail into the wall, and I'd get the rejection slips back, and I would put them on that nail, and around the time that I turned 17 or 18, the nail fell out of the wall because there were so many rejection slips on it, so I got a bigger nail. And if there's any secret that I know to success, it's if you don't succeed, get a bigger nail.
I think it begins usually with a character and quite often with an image. And sometimes the character or the image that it begins with disappears right out of the book. I always knew this was going to be about an elderly lady, and she always had a container. And inside the container there was always something. Yes, but at first she had a hat box. And inside the hat box were some letters. And I threw that out. Then she had a suitcase. And inside the suitcase there was a photograph album. That didn't last very long. That had to go out as well. And then, you see, it got bigger and bigger. She had a steamer trunk, and inside the steamer trunk is what you're going to find in this book, because that's what I ended up with. I'm searching for the way in to the story. And for instance, in Robber Bride, there was once a ceramic ashtray, and that disappeared, but it turned into a vase. So that's in the book now. In The Handmaid's Tale, I began it with the hanging scene right at the beginning of the book. That moved all the way back towards the back of it. So things rearrange. I might get a quarter way in and throw that out, or just think this is not working, it goes in a drawer. Well, I think the hardest part is beginning and convincing yourself that this is actually going to go forward, or that you have the stamina to keep at it. You know, I think that is really the hard part, is, am I really going to do this day after day for the foreseeable future? I think you would call it terror. Fear is that you will do it and it won't work. That's the fear, that it won't work in the end.
No, what I've finally figured out, when I've been asked what gonzo means for so long, that I'm forced into at least a pretense of finding a serious definition. And when I went to Vegas to do, actually, when I realized I was going to do a book out of it, or a long article, what I've been trying to do for a long time was to eliminate the steps or the blocks between the writer and the page. That's why I always get the fastest and newest typewriters. If they make one that costs $12 million, I'll write a bad check and get it for a while. And it's the steps between what you're thinking and what you want to put on the page. When I was forced to make a distinction between gonzo and what Tom Wolfe calls new journalism, that was the first and most obvious one that came to mind. That people like Tom and, say, Gay Talese or whoever else, I never understood what new journalism was. When Tom was writing his book, I asked him several times to send me something to tell me what it really meant, because I'm included in the book, and I still, I don't know. But it seemed like that was the most obvious difference, that they go back and recreate situations, whereas I'm either too lazy or incompetent or something. I can only get into a story when I'm right there, which makes for a problem sometimes. Well, I don't sleep. I have to get my mind right into what I'm writing about. I have to stay there.
Right.
That's why I have to write at night.
Yep.
Because during the day, if I try, there's always something. Phone calls or people in the driveway. I tried writing on the porch in the sun. I tried writing in here. But I have to have time to drift into that kind of mindset and be there.
So you don't come from Tennessee, do you?
No, I come from Mississippi.
Mississippi. Well,
yeah.
How'd they put that handle on you of Tennessee?
I put it on myself.
That was your own idea.
It was my own idea because my father's family were Tennesseans, yes.
When you start to write a play, what do you sort of get to first? The general story outline, or the characters involved, or the setting? What do you look for first?
I'm always a little confused by that question because I don't quite remember. Usually my long plays grow out of short plays, and usually the short plays grow out of short stories.
In other words, then the ideas probably come first, the characters second, locale third.
I'm not sure whether it's the character that comes first. Certainly it's the character that's most important to me, more important to me than the story.
I find it very difficult to write in a place like New York City as compared to, say, the leisure of Lake Como or Lake Maggiore or a place like that.
Yes, I find New York the most difficult place to work. Certainly any place where you have more leisure, like Rome, or Lake Como, as you mentioned, or the mountains of Austria are much better for writing.
Bob Sherwood once told me that the proximity of the telephone was his greatest problem in writing.
I find that to be, yes, because I can't resist answering it.
And the friends keep calling. Yeah. Tennessee, thanks an awful lot for chatting with us. It's certainly nice to meet you again. We seem to have you quite a bit on the ships, but then being a writer, you have to be a veteran traveler. Have a good trip this time.
Did you always know that you were a writer?
That's hard to say. When I was a kid, I used to write, and then when I became a teenager, I didn't do much of anything.
Are you passionate about writing?
I like what I do,
Mm-hmm.
and I suppose some writers have said in print that they hated writing. It was just a chore and a burden. I certainly don't feel that way about it. Sometimes it's difficult. You always have this image of the perfect thing, which you can never achieve, but which you never stop trying to achieve. But I think that at the core of it, there's this image that you have, this interior image of something that is absolutely perfect, and that's your signpost and your guide. You'll never get there, but without it, you won't get anywhere.
When you start out to write a book, do you start out with that image?
It's not so much a conscious thing, I don't think. It's just, you always have that hope that today I'm going to do something better than I've ever done.
There's the hope.
That's for hubris.
That's good. So do you write methodically? Do you have a schedule? I've talked to many, many different writers over the years, and no. Or does it just come to you and you write it whenever it comes?
Faulkner once was asked if he wrote every day or only when he was inspired, and he said, "I only write when I'm inspired, but I'm inspired every day." You have to take it seriously. You have to treat it as the work that you do. Some people say, "Do you plot everything out?" And I said, "No, that would be death. I mean, you can't plot things out. You just have to trust in, wherever it comes from."
It's the whole point that these juxtapositions between what you're thinking if you're walking down the street and what you see, that was exactly what I was introducing. You see, life is a cut-up. Every time you walk down the street or look out the window, your consciousness is cut by random factors, and then you begin to realize that they're not so random, that this is saying something to you.
I mean, are you someone who believes, rather like Arthur Koestler, the idea of coincidence almost revealing a web of reality?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yes. There's no such thing as coincidence.
But when you'd actually done, on a literary level, you'd reassembled your own work, other people's work and so on, surely then you select.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just so random that you say, there are 100 pages, publish.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's, you're trying to sell raw material instead of a finished product. Whereas I may make a cut-up. I don't do it too often anymore.
No.
And out of 10 pages, use a sentence.
So you simply wait until coincidence gives you something artistically good in your terms.
Absolutely.
I see. So you use coincidence not just to be random, but as a tool of the artist.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I see. Yeah. You mentioned T.S. Eliot earlier because he had a similar background to you in a sense. You once said The Wasteland was the first cut-up. You didn't mean that literally, that he cut it up, but do you mean it read as if it was a cut-up?
It read as if it was a cut-up. Now, he'd taken a little bit here and a little bit here from this, all kinds of different sources, and assembled them into a sort of a montage or a tapestry. Of course, they were very carefully selected. But there was that element that was what gave it this element of surprise.
Yes. Because when you were at Harvard, you did your English literature degree, didn't you? 36. Wasn't Eliot there lecturing, wasn't he?
He was, yes. He gave a seminar. I didn't attend it. Well, I wasn't into writing at that time at all. See, I didn't write anything till I was 35. Not quite. There was some efforts prior to that. But I did hear him lecture.
You didn't?
I did hear him lecture,
did,
yes. He's a very good speaker.
Yes.
Very good speaker indeed.
But you admire the work.
Oh, yes.
The Wasteland.
Very much.
But is it not so much... one thing, it looks a little bit like a cut-up. But another thing about it is that it's got this kind of decadent city feel, the decline of our civilization almost. Is that what attracts you as well?
Well, partly, but it's, I don't know, I find myself using quotations from Eliot in my work. all the time, like that, a piece that I read sometimes on the nuclear situation. Hurry up, please, it's time. Hurry up, please, it's time.
What sort of things did you write about when you began writing poetry?
Nature, I think. Birds, bees, spring, fall, all those subjects which are absolute gifts to the person who doesn't have, sort of any interior experiences to write about. I think that the coming of spring, the stars overhead, first snowfall and so on are gifts for a child, a young poet.
I was brought up on the northern coast of Massachusetts, and my whole childhood was spent on the ocean. I remember the very spectacular hurricanes we used to have, where my grandmother's cellar would be flooded and there would be sharks washed up in the garden and so forth. And the image of the sea has been with me ever since, even though I've been inland for a few years. And I think one always goes back to something as vivid and colorful as this sort of experience. And I know that the sea comes into a great many of my poems. Sometimes it's just a subconscious sea, a sort of flow of thoughts and so on. Other times it's the real sea itself.
Perhaps this is an American thing. I've been very excited by what I feel is the new breakthrough that came with, say, Robert Lowell's life studies, this intense breakthrough into very serious, very personal, emotional experience, which I feel has been partly taboo. Robert Lowell's poems about his experiences in a mental hospital, for example, interest me very much. These peculiar, private, and taboo subjects, I feel, have been explored in recent American poetry. I think particularly of the poetess Anne Sexton, who writes also about her experiences as a mother who's had a nervous breakdown, as an extremely emotional and feeling young woman. And her poems are wonderfully craftsmanlike poems, and yet they have a kind of emotional and psychological depth, which I think is something perhaps quite new, quite exciting.
Were you a happy child? Did you have a sort of sporty life, or did you live in your imagination a great deal?
Well, I think I was happy up to the age of about 9, very carefree, and I believed in magic, which influenced me a good bit. And then at 9, I was rather disillusioned. I stopped believing in elves and Santa Claus and all these little beneficent powers and became more realistic and depressed, I think. And then gradually became more adjusted about the age of 16 or 17. But I certainly didn't have a happy adolescence, and perhaps that's partly why I turned specially to writing. As I wrote diaries, stories, and so forth, and was quite introverted during those early years.
Yeah, it all changed about more or less around writing Inglourious Basterds. It all changed. Before that, I was very much like an amateur, mad little writer. Like I mostly wrote at night, all night long, go to bed in the morning. Or if I was writing during the day, I probably was writing in a restaurant. Go to a restaurant and order some shit and drink a lot of coffee and be there for 3 hours with all my shit laid out. Somewhere around doing Reservoir Dogs, that changed. Around Inglourious Basterds, I started writing during the daytime, where I get up and, it's so around 10:30 or 11 o'clock or 11:30, I would sit down and write. And like a normal work day. And I would sit down and I would write until 4, 5, 6, or 7. Somewhere around there, I would stop. And then I have a pool and I keep it heated, so it's nice. And I'd go into so if I finished, so either I'm not finished with a sequence or I've just finished a sequence and I got to figure out what to do next. So if I haven't finished a sequence, then I'd hop in my pool and just kind of float around in the warm water and think about everything I've just written and how I can make it better or what else can happen as far as before the scene's over. And then a lot of shit would come to me. Literally, a lot of things would come to me. And then I'd get out and I would make little notes on that, but not do it. And that would be my work for tomorrow. Or if I just finished a scene, all right, I would think, okay, I'd go back over it in my head in the pool and think about it. Now what's the next scene? Okay, now what's next? And then I'd figure out a few things and make notes, and that's my work for the next day. And that's ended up becoming this really, really enjoyable, really kind of lovely way to write.